I'm just like to make the point that we're very fortunate that His Majesty has allowed us to use Buckingham Palace for this event.
Princess Anne had attended difficult family gatherings, endured uncomfortable ceremonies, and stood beside the crown through moments that might have broken anyone else. But this invitation was different. When King Charles personally summoned her to a private dinner at Windsor Castle, he expected loyalty, silence, and perhaps reluctant acceptance. Instead, Anne sent back a refusal so direct that the monarch read it twice. Her empty chair would soon become more powerful than anything said around that table. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles arranged the evening inside Windsor Castle, the sovereign's historic residence and working royal home, with the intimacy of a family gathering. Yet the guest list told another story. Anne, Camilla, William, and several senior advisors were invited, while spouses, younger royals, and household staff were excluded. The king wanted privacy because the dinner was never meant to be social. It was meant to secure agreement. Anne discovered the truth at Gatcombe Park when she opened the accompanying briefing. The proposal would elevate Camilla's ceremonial status, meaning her formal rank and authority at state occasions, while expanding her influence over household decisions and the monarchy's public direction. The Princess Royal read every page in silence. Then she removed her glasses, folded the papers once, and told her private secretary, "I will not lend my presence to something I cannot support." Her refusal was written, deliberate, and impossible to soften. Charles received the note shortly before the table was set. He did not argue. He placed Anne's message beside his plate and stared at the chair reserved for his sister. Camilla noticed the movement, felt the tension, and waited for him to speak. The queen consort understood that absence could wound more deeply than confrontation, especially when the missing person was known for placing duty above comfort. Anne offered no excuse, scheduling conflict, or diplomatic apology. She wrote that attendance could be recorded as consent, and that she would not allow silence to become approval. The sealed appendix made the danger clearer. It positioned Camilla as the monarchy's central female authority, reduced Anne's informal influence, and threatened to reshape the future balance between the Queen and Catherine. William saw the folded refusal beside his father's plate and realized the invitation concealed far more than a dinner. Before anyone sat down, the prince quietly asked an aide to obtain the complete proposal immediately. Anne's absence had exposed the secret purpose of the gathering, but to understand why her refusal cut Charles so deeply, the personal stakes facing every member of the family had to be confronted. This was not simply a disagreement over rank. It was a collision between a brother who believed he was protecting his wife, a sister who believed she was protecting the crown, and a queen who had spent years waiting to be fully accepted. Behind the titles stood three people carrying old wounds. Charles wanted recognition for Camilla. Anne feared irreversible damage. And Camilla understood that every honor offered to her could reopen a battle the palace had never truly settled. Anne had built her life around duty without spectacle. The Princess Royal, a title given to the monarch's eldest daughter, had served through scandal, grief, and family division, without demanding a larger place for herself. She believed service carried weight precisely because it did not need constant reward. Charles saw that restraint differently now. To him, Camilla's expanded status was not ambition. It was repayment for years of criticism, rejection, and private sacrifice. Anne admitted the truth only to Sir Timothy Lawrence during a quiet conversation at Gatcombe Park. She told her husband that refusing Charles had hurt more than she expected. The king was not merely her sovereign, he was her brother, and she had stood beside him during their mother's final years, when grief stripped away every royal defense. Yet she also told Timothy that attending the dinner would have allowed affection to overrule judgment. Hurting Charles was painful. Hurting the monarchy would be worse. Camilla felt the wound before the dinner even began. She sat preparing for the evening, wearing a necklace chosen for what she believed would be a moment of family recognition. When an aide quietly confirmed that Anne would not attend, the queen consort touched the clasp at her throat and asked whether the refusal mentioned her directly. The aide hesitated. Camilla understood. She did not ask again, but the silence followed her into the evening. Charles became defensive rather than furious. He remembered Anne's loyalty during the darkest days of the family, and could not understand why she would abandon him now. The monarch believed he was correcting years of unfairness toward Camilla, not creating a new threat. Anne, however, feared something larger. She saw a precedent in which private loyalty could be used to change public hierarchy without full consultation. William's unease deepened when he received only part of the briefing. The prince noticed that Catherine's future ceremonial position was repeatedly described as subject to adjustment, meaning her formal place at royal events could later be reduced or reshaped. That language changed everything. William telephoned Anne that evening. She did not explain the entire plan. She simply told him to ask why it was being approved at dinner instead of before the full family council, the senior gathering used to discuss decisions affecting the wider monarchy. His question opened a door Charles had hoped would remain closed, leading directly to the earlier incident that had transformed Anne's private concern into open resistance. Anne's refusal did not begin with the dinner invitation. It began weeks earlier, during a carefully rehearsed ceremony that should have passed without controversy. One altered instruction, one displaced chair, and one private exchange changed everything. Most guests noticed nothing. Anne noticed every detail. By the time the event ended, she understood that Camilla's elevation was no longer an idea being discussed in private. It was already being tested in public, one small precedent at a time. Anne arrived for the anniversary service at St. George's Chapel, expecting the original arrangement to remain in place. The chapel, a historic royal church used for major family ceremonies, had been prepared with her seated near Charles, while Camilla held the senior position beside him. That order mattered, because royal seating is never casual. It signals rank, access, and whose authority the public is expected to recognize. Hours before the service, everything changed. Camilla was given a more prominent entrance, authority to receive several distinguished guests, and a position usually coordinated through the sovereign's office and the household of William and Catherine. The revised plan had not been discussed with Anne. It had simply appeared, carrying the quiet force of a decision already made. Anne entered the antechamber and saw her chair moved away from the central family grouping. She asked the Lord Chamberlain, the senior official responsible for organizing major royal occasions, who had authorized the change. Before he could answer, Camilla stepped forward and said quietly, "Charles felt it was time the arrangement reflected the future." Anne did not raise her voice. She placed one hand on the back of the relocated chair and looked directly at the Queen. Then she answered that the future could not be decided by moving furniture before anyone had agreed to what the movement meant. Camilla held her composure, but she understood the warning. This was no longer about a seat. Charles approached his sister after the ceremony and insisted the revision had been symbolic, not political. Anne replied that royal symbols are political, precisely because the family cannot dismiss them once the public has seen them. The king heard defiance. She believed she was naming the truth. Anne requested the planning papers afterward and found references to a developing central queen's office, a proposed team that would coordinate patronages, ceremonial priorities, and selected family appearances under Camilla's direction. The dinner invitation suddenly made sense. Charles intended to turn the chapel experiment into a permanent arrangement, using Anne and William's attendance as proof of unity. William later asked what had caused her refusal. Anne sent him one page from the revised instructions with a single sentence underlined. "Attendance shall signify collective endorsement." The words changed his understanding, but they also ensured that Anne and Charles could no longer avoid the confrontation waiting behind Windsor's closed doors. Charles could tolerate disagreement from advisors. He could endure criticism from newspapers. What he could not accept was Anne turning her absence into a public symbol inside his own family. The morning after the dinner, he demanded a private meeting. No secretaries, no prepared statements, no carefully arranged compromise. When Anne entered the king's study, she found the rejected invitation placed between them. Charles pointed to the chair opposite him. She remained standing, and the confrontation began before either spoke. Charles summoned his sister to Windsor because he needed to know whether her refusal was a temporary protest or a direct challenge to his authority as sovereign. That authority, the formal power carried by the reigning monarch, depended not only on command, but on the appearance of family unity. Anne arrived without a folder, aid, or written defense. She came alone because she was speaking to him as both king and brother, and she would not hide behind palace procedure. Charles lifted her refusal note and asked why she could not show him the courtesy of attending. Anne did not soften her answer. "Because you asked for my presence, not my honesty." You wanted my chair occupied so that no one could say I objected." The words struck harder than anger. He accused her of humiliating Camilla and weakening the stability he had fought to build. Anne held his gaze. She told him stability could not depend on relatives surrendering their judgment whenever his personal feelings were involved. The Princess Royal believed the danger was larger than one dinner. If loyalty could be turned into silent endorsement, then every future decision could be protected from challenge, simply by placing family members around a table. Charles's anger gave way to pain. He told Anne she had never understood what Camilla had endured. The king spoke of years of hostility, public rejection, and private sacrifice. Anne lowered her voice and answered that she understood suffering perfectly well, but suffering did not create an automatic right to permanent authority. Compassion, she warned, could not be allowed to rewrite the structure of the monarchy. Charles then revealed what Anne had feared. Camilla's expanded role had already been discussed with senior courtiers, the experienced officials who manage royal duties and protocol, and preliminary changes were ready to begin. The dinner had never been designed to debate the proposal. It was meant to bless a decision already made. Anne placed the chapel document on his desk and pointed to the endorsement clause. She called the use of family attendance as proof of consent manipulative, and warned that she would say so openly if the plan continued unchanged. Charles waited until she reached the door. Then he said William had attended the dinner and raised no formal objection. Anne stopped. Her nephew's silence could decide everything. Charles believed the prince had secured the future, but William had left the table carrying questions that would soon expose where real royal power rested. A monarch may issue instructions, but royal authority is rarely exercised alone. Behind every ceremony stands a network of households, advisors, future responsibilities, and inherited expectations. Charles could elevate Camilla within his own reign. He could not guarantee that William would preserve those changes afterward. That reality transformed the Prince of Wales from a silent dinner guest into the most important figure in the dispute, and forced him to choose between obedience to his father and protection of his own future court. William understood why the plan could not succeed through command alone. Camilla's proposed authority over family appearances and ceremonial priorities would affect several royal households, meaning the separate offices that organize the duties of senior family members. Without the cooperation of William and Catherine, the Queen's office could issue instructions, but it could not create lasting unity. Charles still believed the decision belonged to him. The king viewed the changes as part of his personal prerogative, the traditional freedom a sovereign has to shape the working structure of a reign. His advisors warned him that any arrangement affecting the future monarch and his wife had to survive beyond the present reign. If William rejected it later, Camilla's elevation would collapse and leave the family more divided than before. William stood alone in his Kensington Palace study, reading the full appendix Anne had helped him obtain. He reached the paragraph concerning Catherine, set the document down, and walked away before reading it again. The words "subject to adjustment" appeared beside her future ceremonial position. To him, that language suggested her role could be reduced during the very years meant to prepare her for queenship. Catherine entered and noticed the open file. William told her he had attended the dinner, believing it was a discussion, not a demand for silent endorsement. The prince admitted that opposing Charles would be seen as rejecting Camilla, yet accepting the wording could weaken his wife's standing. Catherine did not tell him to confront his father. She simply asked whether their children should inherit a monarchy shaped by decisions no one had been allowed to question. William returned to the document and found the private endorsement page. It required signatures from Charles, Camilla, Anne, and himself. Anne's line remained empty. His own was still blank. That absence suddenly became power. William contacted the king's private secretary and stated that his attendance could not be recorded as approval. He demanded the removal of every reference to Catherine being subject to adjustment and asked that Anne's concerns be formally entered into the review. Charles received the unsigned document while Camilla stood beside him. The king looked first at William's empty line, then at Anne's. The unity he had intended to display was fracturing around him. With two signatures missing, the proposal could no longer move quietly, and the consequences began spreading through the palace before Charles could contain them. The first casualty of the conflict was not a title or a ceremonial privilege. It was trust. Camilla had believed the dinner would finally confirm that the family accepted her place without reservation. Instead, Anne stayed away. William withdrew his implied support, and Charles became increasingly determined to defend the plan. Then came the moment Camilla feared most, a private briefing in which an advisor explained that the elevation could not proceed unchanged. She listened without interruption, but her composure did not survive the closing door. Palace officials suspended the new arrangements until Charles, William, and Anne could reach a settlement. The ceremonial structure, meaning the formal order used to organize royal duties and appearances, had already begun shifting around Camilla. Staff members were now told to reverse those changes and return to the previous system. The retreat mattered, because every cancelled instruction made the disagreement more visible inside the household. Camilla felt the reversal immediately. A reception she had been expected to lead beside Charles was restored to its original format, while Catherine's position remained untouched. The Queen understood what that meant. Her expanded authority had not merely been delayed. It had been judged unstable. Camilla remained seated after the advisor left her private sitting room. The abandoned briefing rested in her lap. When the door closed, she removed her glasses and pressed her fingers against her eyes. Humiliation replaced composure. She had spent years surviving public rejection. Yet this wound came from inside the family she believed had finally accepted her. Charles entered and found her struggling to speak. Camilla told him Anne's refusal made her feel temporary, as though every honor she held could still be withdrawn. The king insisted that he would not retreat. He promised to defend the proposal and correct what he called an unfair surrender to pressure. His determination did not comfort her. It made her fear she had become the cause of a permanent rupture between brother and sister. Camilla asked whether Anne objected to her personally. Charles avoided the question, then admitted that his sister opposed the power attached to the proposal. The Queen answered that the distinction offered little comfort when her name sat at the center of every argument. Rumors spread through the household that Anne possessed written proof showing the dinner had been designed to manufacture endorsement. Charles understood the danger. If the document emerged, the plan could appear secretive, coercive, and driven by emotion rather than duty. Camilla made her choice before he could stop her. She instructed her private secretary to cancel the meeting concerning the new Queen's office, the proposed team that would control ceremonial priorities and family appearances. It was her first step away from Charles's strategy. Anne soon learned of the cancellation and requested one private conversation with Camilla. No king, no advisors, no documents. For the first time, the two women at the center of the dispute would speak without anyone controlling their words. There were no courtiers waiting outside with prepared language. No king was present to defend his intentions. No document lay open demanding approval. Anne and Camilla met alone in a small sitting room at Clarence's house, carrying years of restraint into a conversation neither woman wanted, but both understood was necessary. The dispute had been described as a struggle over rank. In private, it became something more human, one woman fearing erasure, the other fearing that acceptance would never truly be hers. Camilla had agreed to the meeting only on the condition that it remain private. Clarence's house, the London residence used by Charles and the Queen, offered distance from the officials who had shaped every earlier discussion. Tea sat untouched between them. Neither woman wanted ceremony. Both wanted truth. Anne spoke first. She told Camilla that she did not question her place beside Charles or the legitimacy of her queenship, meaning her recognized position as the monarch's wife. Her objection concerned the permanent authority being built around that role without proper family consultation. The Princess Royal said the problem was not who Camilla was. It was how much power others were trying to place in her hands without considering the next reign. Camilla listened, then asked the question she had carried since the dinner. "Do you believe I have taken something that belongs to Catherine?" The Queen's voice remained controlled, but the pain beneath it was unmistakable. Anne answered that the danger did not lie in what she had taken. It lay in what Charles was trying to give, without asking who would be forced to live with the precedent afterward. Camilla finally admitted what she had not told the king. She knew the dinner was intended to create a show of unity, but she had not understood that attendance would be recorded as endorsement. The Queen looked toward the closed door and confessed that she had spent so long seeking acceptance that she had stopped asking what that acceptance might cost everyone else. Anne's restraint softened. She admitted that refusing Charles had been painful because he would see it as betrayal. The Princess Royal had protected her brother through grief and crisis, yet this time loyalty demanded resistance. Camilla answered that allowing him to continue would be worse. The king was defending her so fiercely that he could no longer see the damage being done in her name. Camilla made the decision before fear could weaken it. She would ask Charles to withdraw the proposal in its current form. The queen would keep her established role but reject control over the Wales household, future ceremonial precedents, and the central authority that had divided the family. Camilla asked whether Anne would stand beside her when the decision was announced. The Princess Royal said she would not to endorse the abandoned plan, but to show that duty had defeated victory. Their understanding ended the personal battle, but the monarchy still had to explain why the king's plan had vanished, and why Anne's empty chair had become a national symbol. By the time the palace confirmed that the proposed restructuring would not proceed, the story had escaped the walls of Windsor. The public did not see briefing papers or private tears. It saw a sister refusing her king, a queen withdrawing from a promised elevation, and a future monarch withholding his signature. What began as an empty place at dinner became a debate about loyalty, power, and whether royal duty meant obedience or the courage to tell the sovereign that he had gone too far. Buckingham Palace released a controlled statement confirming that the existing ceremonial arrangements would remain in place. The palace, which serves as the monarch's official London headquarters, also made clear that no new central authority would be created around Camilla's household. The language was calm, but the meaning was unmistakable. Charles's plan had stopped. Journalists immediately connected the reversal to Anne's refusal and the two missing endorsements. The statement never named the dinner, yet commentators understood why the proposal had collapsed. Some praised Charles for trying to honor his wife after years of hostility. Others defended Anne's constitutional caution, meaning her determination to protect the balance of royal power from personal emotion. Outside Buckingham Palace, the controversy became impossible to contain. A crowd gathered near the gates as newspaper vans arrived. One front page was lifted above the barrier with the headline, "Anne's empty chair halts Queen's rise." Beneath it appeared an image of the Princess Royal arriving alone at an earlier engagement, firm and unsmiling. Anne saw the headline while traveling to a charity visit. She folded the newspaper, placed it beside her, and told her protection officer that she had never wanted to become the story. The Princess Royal's discomfort revealed the truth. Her refusal had not been a campaign for public approval. It had been an act of duty that became public only because others had tried to hide its meaning. Camilla watched a broadcaster describe her as the queen who stepped back to preserve the family. The words wounded her because they turned private pain into public judgment. Yet she accepted that withdrawing voluntarily was the only way to prevent the dispute from defining the rest of Charles's reign. William prepared to appear beside Charles and Camilla at a national service. Courtiers feared that one cold glance or distant gesture would expose resentment, while photographers waited for proof of division. Then Anne arrived and took her established place. Camilla approached first. The two women exchanged a brief nod before entering together. The gesture ended the public battle without pretending nothing had happened. The world had witnessed reconciliation, but only Charles could decide whether he would remember the episode as a defeat or accept the truth Anne had forced him to face. The final decision was made without ceremony. There was no grand council, no public confession, and no triumphant victor. Charles returned to the same Windsor dining room where Anne's chair had remained empty and placed the unsigned proposal on the table. Camilla stood beside him. William waited across the room. When Anne entered, the king did not ask her to apologize. He opened the file, removed the endorsement page, and tore it once down the middle. The battle was over. Charles formally withdrew the proposal and ordered every related draft, planning instruction, and reference to collective family endorsement removed from active palace policy. That policy meant the working rules used to guide royal duties and decisions. The king understood that the dinner should never have been used to turn attendance into consent. He placed the torn page beside Anne's original refusal and admitted that silence had been treated as approval. Camilla kept her recognized position as queen and continued her established public work, but she would receive no authority over William and Catherine's household, Anne's responsibilities, or the ceremonial structure of the next reign. The queen accepted the limit because her standing would now rest on service rather than newly created power. Anne told her brother that she had not refused him to weaken his reign. She refused because the crown becomes vulnerable when those closest to the monarch are afraid to say no. Charles listened without interrupting. The distinction still hurt him, but he finally accepted that her resistance had come from loyalty rather than rebellion. Camilla thanked Anne for speaking to her directly, instead of allowing resentment to harden in silence. The Princess Royal answered that dignity was not created by greater rank, it was revealed by knowing when not to claim it. The Queen understood that stepping back had preserved more than her reputation. It had preserved her place within the family. William confirmed that the existing balance between the royal households would remain intact. Catherine's future position would not be diminished, Anne's service would not be quietly displaced, and Camilla's role would not be expanded through hidden agreements. The prince had protected the future without publicly humiliating his father. Charles finally understood the painful truth. His attempt to defend Camilla had exposed her more deeply and risked turning her into the symbol of a divided monarchy. By withdrawing the plan, the king was not rejecting his wife. He was protecting her. Charles picked up Anne's refusal note as the meeting ended. He did not tear it. He folded it carefully and placed it inside the empty file, preserving the reminder that the strongest service he had received came from the person willing to disappoint him. The dinner never brought the family together, but the refusal did. Charles surrendered the plan. Camilla chose dignity over power. William protected the future. And Anne proved that sometimes the crown survives, because one loyal voice has the courage to say no. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.